importantly, we have you, the audience, that is, in search always of continually improving, rebuilding margins, increasing asset values, and having growth strategies. Always the case and always should be the case. And we also have a very full deck now, and a deck of credible participants. And those participants range from the Ace of Clubs to the Queen of Hearts. And it's Andrew, Richie, Jade, and Jessie. So we'll come back to you guys in a minute for an intro. But we also have our raison d'etre, forgive the accent. A question which is historic data reliable for revenue management in the future?
When pricing using data is benchmarking from achieved rates. But actually this, coming back to our topic, this relies on historical market data. But increasingly managers are looking forward now, as historical data assumes no change in the market conditions, so supply and demand and so on and so forth. And I think this has been accelerated a lot by the pandemic and the unpredictability surrounding that. And historic precedents have actually become a lot less relevant very quickly.
But something that we look at very closely here, and I think that we learned it in 2020 as rates were dropping off, and this is true in both the US and European markets, the idea of unit economics and understanding profitability. So how low can you go with rate, when are minimums starting to kick in? And so it's important to understand each level of your business all the way down to the individual night. So occupancy on its own is great, ADR on its own is great, but we really have to understand what's the bottom line to not only the property manager that's probably on this call, but also their owners. And then you have to look at all of that within the context of booking pace and length of stay and when it's coming on, because you don't want to book up your entire calendar too early.
In the short-term rental space, most portfolios, especially distributed portfolios, where you're selling individual homes, have kind of two types of risk. There's the risk of not selling your room, and there's a risk of selling at too low of a price. And it's harder than hotels, right? Hotels have a portfolio of rooms they can sell up and they can learn from their book of business in a different type of way. So the hardest thing that all of us try to figure out through all of our different approaches, which we'll probably talk about, is how do you take those both sides of risk of selling for too low with the other risk of not selling your room, and what is the statistical approach that maximizes outcomes in that? So risk is yes, it's a control thing, but then we need to realize that these revenue management systems are going to take your strategy and kind of your risk profile into perspective and try to both not under or oversell you.
The difference between fixed and dynamic then becomes really the frequency with which you're changing that data, which is where automated tools like Beyond Pricing or Wheelhouse or Price Labs come in. We do it more frequently because we know lead times are changing, market conditions are changing. So you could have a very up and down price. Not necessarily, you don't need to have a flat price. You could have a very jagged price, but still be fixed because you're not changing it every day or as the market changes, right? And so that's where dynamic pricing comes in, where you could have up and down prices, but depending on what's happening in the market, you're adjusting to it more often.